Welcome to the Coach's Sons podcast. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Chris.
And we are on video, baby.
So are we posting this?
I don't know if we're gonna post this part or not, but people will see a video of us later.
Yes.
We get pretty lucky. We have an interview with Bleacher Report writer Kerry Miller. And we're excited about sharing that. We'll get to that in a second. That is all trade deadline talk. Winners, losers, snooze fest. We just really dive into it. Anecdotes, we dive into it.
It was a great interview. He was awesome to have. Again, Kerry Miller of Bleacher Report. I believe he said he already wrote an article about 7. I forget exactly what it was even called. I got to look it up now. It was.
We're bad at this, Chris. We're really bad at this.
We ruined every bit of credibility that we had there. But he has a new article coming out about like the 7 basically biggest losers of the deadline, and he's working on another one about post trade deadline, like best odds for postseason and stuff. So interesting stuff coming out of his side of the world on Bleacher Report, and awesome for him to take the time to talk to us for a little bit.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. So, but let's dive into things that aren't trade deadline related. First thing is, Chris, this is the first time we've recorded since we've come back from Coors Field. People can't see I have a Coors Field shirt on.
I almost wore mine.
I thought you might wear yours. I was like, we're going to match, but who cares? But yeah, let's kind of talk about that experience. That was one of the last 8 stadiums that you have to check off for you, right?
I think that leaves it with 8.
Leaves
it
at
not
8.
Mistaken.
Okay, awesome.
So I think I was counting that in whatever the hell I was talking about.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, I have 8 left.
8 left. Okay, awesome.
So Coors Field. So hand up. So we there's a lot to discuss here.
All right.
Hand up. We were a little late.
Yep.
To the game. It was first and foremost a golf trip. Golf ran a little late, and then we hit some traffic heading into Denver. So, sorry, it was Star Wars night. If you check attendance, I would put any amount of money that is the most attended game of the entire season for the Rockies.
So it's like 48,000.
It was a lot of people.
A lot of people.
40,000 plus. And I don't know if I've ever seen that many at a Rockies game, but they were all there. Like we had to be like a mile and a half away from the stadium where we parked. We were far. So my first gripe is this is nothing to do with the stadium. This is just baseball in general. The pitch clock just destroyed us. That game lasted. We got their 3rd inning, top 3rd, something like that. The game lasted like 2.5 hours. So if that, 2 hours and like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So we were in that stadium for maybe an hour and 30 minutes.
Not long at all.
And that defeat, most times I like to get in, walk around, check everything out. We didn't have time. We'll be back. I get it. But my gripe is this pitch clock. Whenever I'm attending games, we need to turn it off. Right? When I'm in person, I want to relax. I want to, make sure I have a couple different concessions. I want to check out the team store. You know what I mean? I want to take my time, check everything out. Everything felt rushed. And again, we were late. We were late. I understand that, but the game was still only 2 hours and 10 minutes. The game flew by.
I mean, it went by so fast. We saw some home run. Tovar hit a fucking bomb during the game.
It was like off the back wall. Wasn't it?
He hit a mile for sure. And I think what also made it feel even more rushed is, as we were leaving, there was a terrible thunderstorm rolling in, and we were racing to our car so that we didn't get destroyed by the rain and the thunder.
Got in the car, and then it poured.
We made it safe. It poured. So, but I'm with you. I mean, I think we've talked about this in the past where literally you get up at the 3rd inning, you go get a beer, get a hot dog. Oh, I might find a hat too. You sit down, it's the 7th inning stretch. You're like, what the fuck?
You're like, that escalated quickly, right?
Yeah, so it's tough.
That's how I feel when you're there. When you're home, it's great because you're like, I'm just rotting on the couch. Like, this game would be awesome if it were to a Mark Burley pitched game, right? With the pitch clock, he might get down to like an hour 30 or something crazy. But so disregard that, right? That's just me getting on my soapbox about the pitch clock, right, and when I'm at games and stuff. Coors Field, what are your thoughts? Because it was both of our first times there.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on it overall? Where we at?
So I like where Coors Field is positioned in the city. I think that's great being downtown. You have a pretty nice, you have a good view. We didn't have a great view because of the rainstorm and stuff, but you see the Rockies, and I mean, it's very pretty. I think there are better views, obviously out there in the world when it comes to baseball stadiums. I think it's middle of the road, if I'm being quite honest. Nothing really stood out as a as a really signature piece to me. We go, wow, this is unique, or this is awesome. So I mean, I wasn't disappointed. I've been to stadiums I've been disappointed at.
Fair.
But I wasn't overwhelmed, like I say, when you go to like a Wrigley or a Fenway.
Harsh but fair.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Doug's gonna take offense to it because he loves it personally, and like you said, I'm not saying it's bad, right? We're not out here being like that place sucks, 0 out of 10. It's just like it was a good stadium, like probably in the better half of what I've been to.
I agree. I mean, I definitely think it's
like
it's
not. I wouldn't put it in a nowhere near a top 5.
No, like if you
you'd have to fight me for top 8.
This is how I would break it down. Like, just break it down in thirds, right? The top third, it could be a top third stadium, but there's a lot of stadiums, right? It's not a middle third. If it is, it's like high mid, and it's not bottom third. So that's kind of how I think about it. So
it's like 8 to 14.
Yeah,
depending on, like, again, you could make an argument for anywhere in there, and I'm like, okay. But there's a lot. I wouldn't put it over like a certain amount. Or certain ones. We're not going to do a stadium ranking.
Maybe one day
right now. But it was a good time. It was Rockies Giants. Tovar hit like you said, hit an absolute bomb off the back wall there. The ball just flies out of that place.
It's unbelievable.
It's awesome. Like, when you're looking, when you're sitting there, you're like, yo, this place is huge, right? Like a triple, like just haven, right? Like you hit one of those gaps, you're just running. So it's a weird to see like how they play there, right? Because guys are playing a little further back because to avoid you're almost playing no triples defense, right? Instead of like a no doubles. So I think that's a very that's just an interesting tidbit to it. And I know it's Coors, but the distance, the distance for your fly balls or for your home runs is just further, right? You have to hit 415 to get it out of that place. So most of your home runs are bombs, but the ball is flying. Again, overall good experience. I wouldn't say don't go by all means. Enjoy it, have fun. I think we'd have a different perspective if we got there early and got to me.
You're probably right. I mean, I would say too, Denver in general, Colorado in general is a phenomenal state. Like probably top 5 state.
It's up there.
Yeah, it's up there. Like it's just so gorgeous. It is different on elevation. I will attest. You hit bombs. Like I was hitting the golf ball way further than I've ever hit it before, and it's because of the elevation, right? So it's definitely fun. It's fun. Different. And just the Rockies, the mountains. Like holy crap! It is. You cannot put into words, and you cannot capture it on camera either, right? Until you're there in person, it's just so beautiful. So I will say that has a lot going.
The state, again, we had huge overcast, right? That storm was coming.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, there was like some lightning on the scoreboard, right? Like flashing. And I was just like, was that lightning? And I was told no. And then 20 minutes later, we were about to get just poured on.
Absolutely dumped on.
So I was ultimately right, I think. I mean, there's a chance it was still a scoreboard. Who knows? But like you said, the views in Colorado, incredible. The state itself, A+. Stadium, solid. Middle of the road to high end. It's not that upper echelon. It doesn't have the historic factor added in. Right there's certain things that make stadium unique. I enjoyed it. Colorado as a whole, it was super awesome. I can't wait to go back and get the full experience and give it I'll give it a second review. I'll give it another try because most times I go to I go to a stadium for the first time, I'm there super early. I'm there when you open the gates because I want to take it all in. I have the time to go try all the concessions and all that type of stuff. So willing to give her another try, but Coors, you did me well, and we got 8 more, baby.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're getting there. So before we get to the interview, let's kind of cover the top stories in baseball right now that aren't trade deadline related. And I can think of one that sticks out like a sore thumb or a sore whatever he tore again, and that's Mike Trout getting injured and being out for the rest of the season again. Holy crap, man! Like
sucks.
I mean, look, I want to see the best player in baseball play baseball. And even though I hate his team and watching his team is like not fun, but we want him to play. So this is definitely, I mean, another detriment to the
Major League Baseball. It's not fun, right? Like obviously you're probably not tuning into the Angels right now anyway. No. And if you are going to, it is to watch him, right? It is
1,000%.
Especially how we said in the early season, we used the MLB app. Oh, Trout's up. Let me turn the Angels on. And now we don't even have that. And he unfortunately is starting to turn into a what if in almost a worse way than Griffey. Right, Griffey has the what if. What if he stayed healthy? He could have been better, right? Arguably, counting stats, one of the best of all time.
Yep.
Trout still has that, like, what if? Like, yes, he could have been better, but it's just like we missed out on so much. And I personally don't think I appreciated him as much when he was doing his thing.
No.
So it's like, you know what I mean? I wasn't in tune enough to be like, oh shit, like what he's doing is special. And even to start the year, you're like, like this is Trout, like nice, like we're back, baby. And then he got hurt, whatever, and now it turns out to be season ending, and you're just like, well, shit, like I don't know if we're ever gonna get that, and you're almost foolish to think you're going to get it, like. Fool me once, and it's not his fault. I'm not.
No, it's not.
Coming at him per se, but it's just it's becoming one of the biggest what ifs of all time. And I don't know if I said this in a text with you or not, but in the big picture of it all, minus we'll call baseball nerds, right? Minus the people who care very much about how his stats looked, his advanced stats, because they're incomparable. Bryce Harper is going to greatly surpass him in most counting stats within the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
Harper can get to 500 home runs easily. Yep. He's got a path. This assumes health, right? I guess the same thing could happen to Bryce Harper,
exactly.
But it's not.
Of the two, which is
precedent.
It's surprising the way that Harper plays because he just plays with so much intensity. But I think Trout's injury is a lot higher, which is so weird to say. Because the guy doesn't, I don't feel like I watch Trout and go, yeah, that's an injury risk type of player because he just does everything so
it's a meatball.
Yeah, it's just it's wild.
He moves differently, he moves fast, and then it was even like, okay, like tone it down a little. But like now, what do you do? Like, do you just DH the guy and just let him hit? Do you throw him in? Do you put him in left field? Do you say, hey, we're not stealing? Like, what I mean? I don't know if there's like an injury because. When you take stuff like that away from a player who's done that their whole life, you change who they are as a player too, right? So like, you start putting these, parameters on him. Like similarly, like the Braves, right? When Acuna comes back, are they just gonna be like, hey, bud, you're not stealing anymore? Like,
right?
They might, but you're gonna change fundamentally who Ronald Acuna Jr. is, and yes, that's part of developing as a player, right? You lose speed, you do this, you do that, but. Man, we missed out on some prime Mike Trout.
Yep.
And that's not to say like he's been bad. Like his stats are still remarkable overall. So it's just a shitty thing. And you hate to see it because he is one of the game's best.
Arguably, when healthy, the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, and now his place in like historically comes into play, and now it just doesn't look as good. You're like, okay, like hypothetically, if Mike Trout was done today, you're like, whoa, like, like what? He probably gets into the Hall of Fame based on what that, how that's going and what that looks like. But it's just still like, holy hell, like what really could have been for this guy? I don't know. There's no other way to say it that he sucks. Or not he sucks, excuse me. Holy shit. Sorry,
Jesus,
Mike.
Chris.
Sorry, Mike. The whole thing sucks. You want to see the best players play. That's what I'm all about all the time. I'm trying to pull up a quick comparison. I mean, he destroys Bryce Harper in WAR.
Yes.
Harper's now blown by him in games. He's about 100 more, roughly. And again, when you talk numbers, like Trout still has 48 more home runs. So like Trout's best is way better than Bryce's best.
Yep.
But he's got 378. Like now the question is, does Mike Trout get to 500 home runs? That's what I want to watch. That's where I'm going. Is Mike Trout? We're on 500 home run watch because not a lot of guys are going to be capable of getting there.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't disagree with that. And it'll
He's
be
at 378.
Yeah, yikes!
122 more.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's 3 full seasons, right? 4 full seasons.
Does he have 6 seasons of 20 home runs? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
32. He's 32, 33 years old now. He's coming off a knee. I mean, shit, man. His career, dude. He hits 299 with a 991 OPS.
He's so good, dude.
Like again,
he's so good.
It sucks, and I know it's like a weird thing because he hasn't played all year, so you're like, oh, whatever. But man, you just want to see him out there and healthy. And I can't even say it's Los Angeles anymore, right? It's not like get him out of there. It's just he's going to be unhealthy everywhere, and that's it. I'm starting to get sad, and that's not what this is about. Let's get happy. What's next?
I think the next thing I know that you wanted to talk about was Mr. Holiday being called back up to the majors.
Yeah, tell everyone how you were shitting on Jackson Holiday in a group text.
I was just saying he looked real bad and out of his element when he got up to the majors.
I don't disagree. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
And so I'm just surprised that he's being called back up because I just don't think you get that fix that fast because he was way out of his league. Now, I know he homered off of
Grand Slam. Bomb.
I know he
might even
homered.
got to Utah Street.
Congrats that the guy can hit the ball hard. We know that from AAA and AA, but we don't know. I mean, it was like a pitcher from the Blue Jays who had over a 7 ERA. He threw a fat pitch to him.
Major League Baseball player.
It's fair. We'll see how that goes. I am not optimistic that he'll be a stud now, but hopefully it'll go better than last time.
Here's the thing. He's back. I'm happy for him. And obviously the home run's awesome, right? First career home run, big grand slam.
Yeah, good for him for sure. Yeah.
Listen, to your point, yes, he was bad. And again, there isn't anybody in their right mind that could argue.
I mean, he hit under 100, right? Like in the majors?
He's still under 100. Yeah. He was bad. And my specific response to you when you said, hey, I still don't think he's ready was he got his test in the majors. Everybody knows what was going on, right? He was attacked hard based on his weaknesses. And I think it'd be crazy to think that the Orioles did not send him back to, I think it's Norfolk, with all of that information of, hey man, this is what you need to do to get better, right? I know he struggled with like the high fastball, right? He couldn't hit it. Like people just abused him with high fastballs. So I don't know this for a fact, but I would just I'm going to blindly assume that he worked on that there, right? Yeah. This is where they're going to pitch you because it's weak, and I want you to focus on hitting these pitches. Whether or not that happened in every game, I don't know, but at least in practice and stuff like that. He had a 0.908 OPS in AAA this year, so it's 73 games. So that's a pretty legitimate sample size. So So we're back to that point. I think we had it in the off season, this conversation of he's better than AAA, right? But it's time, and he has to come up and play. He is only 20, so there's still development there.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And it's time. He doesn't have much else to prove in AAA. You have a 908 OPS. You're hitting 271, like some power. He's got 10 home runs. There's nothing else for him to do there. It's time to come back, and it's time to join the party and try and get this team into division winning or division leading, division winning, playoff contender, all of that. And even if he's not the everyday guy, just being up there, I think is going to be worth it for him. That's my take.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
They should abort ship if he's not, though, right? Based on where they are. You were big on that early, and I disagreed, and I was wrong. So I'm with you in that they're in such contention that you can't let him do that again.
Can't let him drag you down. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. He's got to be hitting at least 220, right? Worthwhile. Now Jordan Westberg's hurt though, so it might just be his time, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, it might just be this is the one, man. So I'm excited. Everybody should be. He's the top prospect in baseball. Well, let's see what happens.
And again, I don't want bad for him at all.
No. I'm not saying you wish that.
I hope the kid's exciting, and I just think it's early. So
it is.
All right. So what's left, Chris? I think there's one more thing.
Last thing. I knew he was playing well, but our boy Dan, Cincinnati Reds Dan, it likes to talk about him all the time to me. This is Bobby Witt Jr. And the man is not to be stopped right now, and he's practically carrying the Royals on his back in their route to trying to find this wild card spot. In July, 23 games, he had 44 hits, 8 doubles, a triple, 7 RBI, 7 home runs, 22 RBI, 2 stolen bases, way less than I would have assumed. But anyway, his slash lines, 489 batting average, a 520 on base, and 833 slugging. That's not OPS. That is slugging only. His OPS is 1.353 for the month of July.
Fucking killing it.
The man played his ass off in July. And if he keeps playing like that, they're not going anywhere. Sadly, yeah. I'm sad to report, and I hope that there is a way that he can. He's hitting 350 on the season now, I believe. By the way, so the guy is a machine. I hope that there is a way that he can continue to play like he is, and the Royals lose.
I'm with you for
right?
sure.
That's the camp that I'm in at this particular point, but it just certainly doesn't seem that way. It just seems like they go as he goes. And if he's playing like that, then, oh baby, we've got a guy who's going to contend for MVPs.
Yeah. I mean, the guy looks amazing. You're definitely not wrong. So we'll continue to see how that goes. Obviously baseball's starting back up. Trade deadline's over. Not many games today, obviously. People have to change teams. So everybody's getting on flights to different areas. But it should be interesting to see how the rest of the year shakes out. So Chris, next up is our interview with Mr. Kerry.
We got Kerry coming up. Everybody enjoy. Let us know what you think. Shoot him a follow at Carriage James. That's on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He tells us at the very end, but he does a lot of college basketball. So if you do follow him, you might not get a ton of baseball, but you could Google him, read some of his articles. on Bleacher Report. And while you're there, don't forget to follow us either at Coach's Sons Pod. That's on Instagram, that's on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. The interview itself, not this particular portion, but the interview itself will be on YouTube as well.
Yep.
I believe that's also just at Coach's Sons. So keep sticking with us. Let us know what you think. Hope you enjoy, and thanks for tuning in.
Hit it.
All right, so we would like to welcome everyone. This is Kerry Miller. He is a sports writer for Bleacher Report, does baseball, basketball, Olympics too, sounds like. How's that been?
Olympics ? That's pretty much every sports. It's fun. Like I've seen, like, I don't know if you guys are college basketball guys, but like, Matt Norlander has been tweeting about the Olympics all week. It's like, so what are we going to do with these basketball writers? Let's have them write about the Olympics. So yeah, I do that every 4 years. I don't do the Winter Olympics. It's too much during basketball season.
Oh, that's fair.
It's fun. It's fun.
The Olympics always suck me in. My family loves the Olympics, so I think that has a lot to do with it. I don't know why I care about, jousting and, handball.
Jousting.
Not jousting, fencing. Sorry. I don't follow it very close, but, the handball that they play, which is basically like soccer with your hands, it's crazy how you start to really care about these sports for a couple weeks and then it kind of goes away, but must be fun to write about. But anyways, Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. I see the hat. You've got the Washington hat right there. So what's kind of your relationship to the team, and give us a little background on your sports fandom real quick.
Yeah, no, I've no connection to the team professionally speaking. I'm allowed to be a fan if I feel like it, I guess. I try and stay partial in my writing, but yeah, I've been living in the DC area for off and on for the last 13, 14 years. Started going right when Strasburg got called up, I think 2010, 2011, whenever that was. And it was fun. I used to be an Astros fan and kind of abandoned them right when they started to get good, which
move.
I guess was a poor decision. It was fun beating the Astros in the 19 World Series, but yeah, I was just living here and I was able to go to games for $5 and just kind of fell in love with these what were lovable losers and then are now again lovable losers. But
fair.
We had a nice little peak there for a while.
Yeah, it's some up and down happening over there for sure. The one thing we also like to ask all of our guests is the name of the podcast is Coach's Sons, right? And so we got to that because we feel like everyone who played baseball, little league, whatever that looks like, whatever level, you either played for your dad or your friend's dad at some point. Did you have that experience when you were playing baseball, or if you did? Or any sport, really?
So I played on the township team. My dad wasn't the coach. He was became friendly with the coaches. I don't know. But now I coach my daughter for Coach Pitch. So I've now become, I guess I should start a Coach's Daughters podcast.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
Coach's Pitch. Okay, so you're tossing it in. Are you tossing it in hot, or are you just kind of giving it the best you can?
75 mile an hour fastball.
Get them started early.
Yeah, exactly.
See it out of the hand. Listen, we're going to get very big into trade deadline, right? Winners, losers, what we think overall. But I want, you gave me a little tidbit in your intro comparing your fandom, or telling us your fandom of Washington starting with Strasburg. Do me a favor and compare that to how you feel the vibes are for Paul Skeens right now. Because for me, they feel the same, if not higher, just because social media is so much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel bigger now. I mean, it was definitely a moment when Strasburg. I wasn't at his first start. I think I was at his third, maybe, and even then, it was still just madness. The team sucked then, but it was still a packed house, which I feel like was Paul Skeens' first few starts, and then Pirates kind of picked up, and now they were actually kind of buyers at the deadline. That was weird for them, but yeah, I think it is very similar. Hopefully, the similarities start and end at this point, and it's not the injury history and all that stuff. We'll see. I'm I'm worried if they're going for it and they're not putting a limit on him and he's never really pitched this many innings. You always got to worry about it. But at this point, even if you put a limit on guys, they're breaking down anyway.
Yeah,
So you never know.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. I agree.
Yep.
I'm excited to see what they do. And then there's going to be uproar no matter what. Somebody's going to be angry. You're not going to make anybody happy. But I'm a proponent of go for it. But I could be way wrong.
Yeah,
One other disclaimer I want to give, though, Andrew's going to give his piece, but I'm a Mariners fan and Andrew's a Braves fan, so tread lightly, all right? But that's why I cheered when I said you said you didn't pick the Astros. I can't stand them.
So I will say with the Skeens and Strasburg thing, that's what the Marlins tried to do with Yuri Perez, and he didn't pitch much last season. Then he didn't even start this season. Had Tommy John surgery. So, like you said, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You never know.
It's awful that my mentality at this point is you just let them pitch because their arm's gonna fall off at some point. So just might as well get it out of them while you can, which is terrible to say, but I mean it's kind of the state of pitching really. Like these guys are throwing so hard and so much that it's just a matter of time. I mean Strider, being a Braves guy, I knew his arm was gonna fall off eventually, right? And I'm glad we had him for a whole year, but I wasn't surprised when I had that alert that said Strider's out. I was like, here we go. So
when they started talking in February, March, like, oh, he's developing a new pitch. I'm like, oh, great. He's going to destroy his arm immediately.
Fantastic. It is what it is. All right. So let's get into trade talk. I think we can all agree there wasn't a holy crap trade, like big top tier name. But there were a lot of trades. So in this just sea of trades that happen, what sticks out to you, Kerry, as the biggest maybe shift? Like this is the biggest move that was made. It's going to have the highest impact.
I think the biggest single trade was either Chisholm to the Yankees or Randy Arozarena to the Mariners. Like beyond that, it just kind of slips off in a hurry, right? Yeah. The next best was Jack Flaherty going to the Dodgers was a nice last second trade that kind of snuck in there. I thought the Tigers were going to screw up again as they did last year with Eduardo Rodriguez, but and those two trades came in early. So actual deadline day was just like, like I said, quantity over quality, just nonstop. Like, okay, fine. Give me the actual news next, please. Like nothing big ever really came in. I think the only real surprise trade was Eloy Jimenez going to the Orioles at the last minute. I didn't even understand that. I don't know what the O's are going for. I don't know why they would give the White Sox that salary relief, but I wrote about the 7 teams who blew it at the deadline. Even with that, the White Sox were still one of them. I said that took them from an F- to an F+ to unload that salary, but I didn't get it. But maybe he'll hit a couple homers for them. Who knows?
Yeah, I thought that was the most confusing trade for sure. The Orioles being the team that they are, having the depth that they do, why would they want to take on that salary? It doesn't make sense. But it is what it is. I think, like most trade deadlines, it's a wait and see, right? Some of these players are going to really find a new environment and excel. Some of them aren't. Like Jazz, I think, can be the biggest in the end. Oh, wow, that was the biggest difference maker. But again, going to Chris's Mariners, Arozarena, if he hits the ball hard, that's what the Mariners have missed the most. So he could have if he provides that spark, that could definitely be the one. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, I'll just talk on Randy. That was an exciting one to wake up to. Middle of the night trade, wake up, like, well, we got Randy Arozarena now. Hell yeah. I wanted more, but that's a big one, right? Mm-hmm. With the way Major League Baseball works now, it's tough to pinpoint his average, right? He's hitting 215, 211, something like that. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, I don't care. He's a veteran bat. He's going to bat second for the most part, maybe lead off, depending on how this all works out. It was an A+ move. They needed to get better. They did. To your other point, and I think I have to bend the knee to Jazz Chisholm right now, because he is just, I don't know what the deal is. I'm waiting for Yankees fans to turn on him when he gets a cold streak, but for now, let them ride high, because that was a big move for them. they got better. And that's all what the deadline is about, right? Like when you're looking at a trade and you see it and you shrug your shoulders, you're like, okay, well, did they get better? And a lot of teams did, and just not the way we wanted them to. Like I wanted Vlad Guerrero Jr., but was he ever available? We don't know the answer to that. I'm convinced that when Jerry Dipoto leaves the Mariners, he's going to write a tell-all book and a bestseller about how hamstrung he was, and then I will forgive him for everything that's happened. But until then, like you don't know what's going. The MLB doesn't share what goes on like the NFL does. NFL will show you this war room, and that's awesome. I love that behind-the-scenes look. You'll never get that beyond a movie that came out 20 years later of Moneyball. But the Yankees gave up practically nothing of value for Jazz Chisholm, right? Just some lottery tickets. And that was the theme of the trade deadline until like some pitchers got involved and all of a sudden like prices got insane. And I don't know if it's to say of, hey, this was a team's number 2 prospect, if that team's depth was any good or if these guys are actually good. So, we'll get into that because, like I said, I think this is like somebody has said, I think this is the most trades ever, quantity-wise, in a trade deadline, like just by sheer number
by volume.
Trades.
Okay. Like number of trades or number of people?
It was like 67 or 68 trades. And usually it's around like 40 maybe.
Yeah.
But it was wild. Volume. It was just a lot, but it was just a lot of shit, right?
just nothing. Like every single, like you said, every single time trade deadline day, I got the pass and notification. You're just like, all right, next.
I'm sorry. Who is Carson Kelly and Mark? Okay, sure. They move teams. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of prospects who are going to listen to this and be like, hey, I matter. But I mean, we just don't know what kind of impact that's going to have. So, but okay, well, so not a lot of big impacts. So let's just talk about which team did the best. So Kerry, we'll let you start. What team do you think achieved the most all around?
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw you a curveball here. And because all the contenders outside of Minnesota didn't do anything. They got
one reliever, I think.
One reliever with like a 5.01 ERA. Like, okay, good job. I feel like Milwaukee didn't do nearly enough either. But most of the contenders improved at least a little bit. If I had to pick one of the contenders to say that improved the most, probably the Dodgers getting Rosario. If Tommy Edman amounts to anything, that'd be a great pickup as well, given their lack of depth in the lineup, and then Flaherty at the last minute. But I think the Rays did the best by just, they sat back like a month into before the deadline. Everybody's just saying it's a seller's market. And they saw like, okay, the Blue Jays aren't going to trade Vlad Guerrero. The White Sox aren't going to trade Garrett Crochet. The Tigers aren't going to trade Tarek Skubal. They're like, well, we have comparable guys, and we'd love to save some money, so let's do this. Like that. I mean, Eflin was owed $18 million next year. Arozarena's contract, it's arbitration. He's probably going to be $12 million ish next year. Another one on top of that afterwards. Like, I'm surprised they weren't able to move Yandy Diaz. That would have saved them another like $15 million or something. Getting rid of Brandon Lowe would have been nice as far as contract money is concerned. But I feel like they did a great job. Whether any of those prospects pan out, who knows? They are the Tampa Bay Rays. They turn lemons into lemonade.
They figure it out. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, but I thought they did an incredible job of just steering headlong into a buyer's market, or excuse me, a seller's market, even though they were, 2-3 games above 500 really heading into the deadline. They were just like, it's not going to happen, but we're going to fix what we've got.
And it's interesting. There are definitely teams that Chris and I had this conversation of because especially in National League, it's so that wild card race is so tight. Yeah. Like who's actually going to commit to trying to make it work this year, and who's going to go, you know what? We're done. Yeah, we'll figure it out next year. So the Rays were on that bubble too on the AL side, and like you said, somehow the Rays figure it out all the time. They're like, you know what? We're going to find talent, we're going to cultivate talent, and then we're going to continue to do this. So they were busy. They're super busy,
and nobody really did dive into selling on the National League. So, I mean, the Marlins did. Yeah. We expected that, but that was really it. Like the Cubs kind of bought. They get traded for Paredes. I thought that was bizarre. I think they're a candidate for kind of like what the Angels did last year, where they threw all of their free agent guys on waivers in late August. I've already seen, like, Buster Olney was saying that Hector Neris is like all but guaranteed to be one of those guys by the end of the month. So, but yeah, like the Reds, I mean, trading away Montas was whatever. They didn't really go all in. I thought they'd trade away more of their bullpen. The Giants didn't pick a lane whatsoever. It looked like they were going to when they traded away Soler. Then the last second, they're like, "Oh, let's go get Mark Canha for no fucking reason." So, yeah, it was weird that the NL didn't do
anything. You know, the other team I was going to mention was going to be the Diamondbacks. I mean, they got rid of Bell, but
they got Bell. They got Bell.
Oh, they got Bell, right? So
that was out of necessity, though. So I don't think so. That Christian Walker thing expedited very quick. So
that's fair.
I remember texting Andrew and executive producer Doug on the side the minute Christian Walker came out, because I just got. It's trade deadline, right? Anytime somebody comes out of the lineup, it's here we go. And then 20 minutes later, it's like, he's hurt. It's like, uh-oh. And then maybe an hour later, Josh Bell is getting traded. And like Josh Bell has been dog water for quite, a couple of years now. And 3 years ago, I wanted him too on my team. I get it. So that was just a necessary move that they had to make. And then they added 2 relievers. They added AJ Puck and Dylan Floro, and they kind of gave up some decent prospects to do that. Bear with me on pronunciation. Davison De Los Santos, he'll probably be playing for the Marlins at some point. Say what you want about their farm system. And then for Floro, this Chaparro fella is apparently playing pretty well. Whether or not he's good, I have no idea.
But I should know who he is as a Nationalist. I just know he kind of looks like Anthony Rendon before he started to hate baseball.
You want that version for sure.
You do want that version.
But that's about it. And the comparisons there. I was looking at it. Where is he? His slash line was insane.
Yeah.
He was slashing 332, 403, 564 in AAA.
That's pretty good. I'll take it.
That's not bad.
I mean, he was in the PCL, so do with that what you will. And I have no idea. He could be 29 for all I know. It didn't say how old he was. Trying to find it. Whatever. That's what the D-backs did. I'm torn on whether or not this extra wild card is worth it, because this trade deadline was dead. Because, like you said, the Reds, what are they doing? They're 5.5 games out, but they're 4 games under 500. In every other sense of the word, they're dead, right? They should have no business hanging around. Cubs, same thing. They're 6.5 back. That Paredes move, I guess you could say it was a future move, but they got a slightly better Morel, I guess.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It
was a small upgrade.
And we all know Morel's going to turn into everything that he's supposed to be in Tampa, right? And that's just how. That's all the trade deadline was. Okay, the Marlins were dead, but how many other teams were dead? The Rangers, I don't know what the hell they were doing either.
The Rockies are dead. They didn't do anything hardly.
Nope.
Another franchise is just totally inept.
I just don't. I'm wearing a rock because we went to Denver not too long ago, so I'm wearing a Rockies shirt. They didn't. I mean, they traded away Beeks, right? And I think that's it.
Beeks and I have it here. There was one other reliever.
Yeah, so they traded 2 relievers.
Nick Mears, whoever that is.
Sure. Okay. Right. Yeah. And it's just what? I mean, they're 16 plus games
dead.
out.
They're. I don't know.
What are you doing? What are you doing? You have to
Ryan
be trying to
McMahon
restock.
should be traded. They have guys that they can move.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Tovar's
clearly stuck with Chris Bryant. Tovar's 22. He's going.
Yeah, no. Tovar is obviously their future and their superstar. He's not going anywhere. But like you said, big man. I guess Bryant they have to hold on. I just don't understand how teams like that are suffering that much don't do anything. It's just very strange.
I hope Tovar doesn't turn into the other 2 shortstops from Colorado.
Yeah, right.
Inevitably don't get paid and then have to leave.
Yeah. Who knows?
But
Who knows?
we'll see what happens.
Chris, who's your winner for the trade deadline?
I'm going to go the backwards way here, like kind of take a page out of Kerry's book. I'm just going to say the Marlins because they got rid of guys that they weren't doing anything with. They're not ready to contend. Whatever that playoff run was last year was just an anomaly, clearly. And, they still have decent pitching. Like Alcantara is going to get traded at next year's deadline. Like that's a no-brainer. Like minus them competing somehow. But they got rid of Jazz. They they were getting rid of Josh Bell no matter what, and then they got the D-backs to take him. They all but robbed the San Diego Padres for Tanner Scott, who's a rental. Like I think overall they did pretty well. And the only issue is they just have lottery tickets. And how much do you trust them to develop? But at the same time, they've developed pitching pretty well in my personal opinion, in terms of Yuri Perez. I mean, Cabrera is still, I'm verdicts out on him still, but it just that when those guys turn good, they trade them is what happens. Yeah. So they don't keep their core together, but they've got a ton of guys to try to make. Like I wrote some notes here. I'll even show like quick. That's all Marlins trades. Yeah. And let's not forget, this was maybe the biggest head scratching move, and we should all talk about this. Biggest head scratcher of the entire deadline to me was Trevor Rogers got traded to the Orioles, and the Orioles gave them Norby and Kyle Stowers, and I guess I just didn't grasp the price of what was going on. And yes, Trevor Richards was an all-star maybe. It was incredible like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. Got hurt and just hasn't been the same person. And I don't know how he warranted that price. But I think they robbed both the Orioles and Padres. And then those other guys that whatever, they're all crazy lottery tickets. But some of those guys are legitimate prospects they can do something with. And to revert, I'm probably jumping the gun. I think the Orioles screwed that all up. Like I've been on record. I've said it 1,000 times that at the trade deadline, they create the market. They can have anybody that they want. And they got Zach Eflin. Who else? They got somebody else. Who else?
Trevor Rogers, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Christian Pache, and then that Eloy trade. But their deadline approach was weird. They were like, we're going to hang on to Jackson Holiday. We're going to hang on to Kobe Mayo. And I can't even think of who the other one was, but they have like 3 top 20 guys. And they were like, all right, but anything else is fair game. And I feel like they didn't get, I feel like they didn't get good value on those deals.
Agreed. So again, I jumped the gun there, but I thought, the Marlins traded De La Cruz as well. Who the hell knows who they got from the Pirates? Their 17th and 18th prospect. So again, the 2 big trades I think they won. A lot of just random prospects. I'm happy with what they did overall because that's what you want teams like that to do, right? That's who you should be going to. I always find it weird that like you're like, this team stinks, but I want like 3 of their players. That concept like just doesn't ring all the time with me. Yeah. Like, well, I would take this guy, and like I would have taken De Los Santos on the Mariners. or excuse me, De La Cruz.
Yeah.
But where are you at, Andrew? Who's your team? And so don't you dare say the Braves because they brought back Solar.
The Solar bomb is still something that lives in infamy. I don't think it's landed yet in Houston, but I think we're all going to pick sellers. So for me, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to say the Detroit Tigers because I think that they were smart because they're like, we're out of it. We're not going to try to pursue. They made a bet on Flaherty, right? Because Flaherty has been up and down. They're saying, hey, we're gonna see what we can get out of him. He's pitched great, and they got back 2 top 30 prospects for it. They also moved a couple other guys names that I don't recognize. Like I said, Carson Kelly, Andrew Chafin, all those guys. Exactly. All those guys for prospects. So they were like, you know what? We're going to step back and we're going to keep our stud. And from everything I've read, Skubal was not close to ever getting moved because they're like, this is the man. He's our future. And that's great. I think a lot of us were kind of envisioning, what if they did trade him? How, what does that look like? But it was never going to happen, and I think that was the right move. But they're able to take this other guy and really get a good price for him. And I think that the Tigers set themselves up to be better long term. So that I think that's where I'm headed. I think honorable mention is going to have to be the Royals. But by the way, just so you know, fuck the Royals. That's Chris and I.
We couldn't be more anti-Royals if you ask. So background to that is preseason we did basically a preview of every team, and we got fans of every team to send like a 2-minute clip of just like, hey, what do you think expectations? Give me a quick story. And I just couldn't find anybody from the Royals. Like nobody would answer me. And so it was like the first one that we didn't have someone for. And when we were recording, it was just like, fuck them. They're dead to me. Like hammer the under. And they are just taking it to me right now.
They're killing us. They're killing us.
They did get a lot better. I had them written down too.
Yeah. I mean,
slight upgrades, but again, that's did this team get better? And
that was the name of the game at this trade deadline, anyways. But I mean, adding in those assets in the bullpen, adding in DeYoung as depth, like that team got better, no doubt. And Chris, even you said you would have loved to have DeYoung on your team, right? So
just a backup guy who could start every other day or something like that, especially with JP Crawford down, he would have fit Seattle. But that Ursig guy, obviously Dallas Braden's a bit of a homer, but he's super high on Ursig, loves him, loves his energy, loves his attitude.
Now,
so
I think the one thing that I didn't pick the Royals for, one, because fuck the Royals, but two, they gave up a good bit for Ursig when it comes to prospects. Based on everything I've seen, they gave like 2 of their top 15 guys. That's steep. That's pretty steep. So, but if Ursig turns out to be what people say he is, that could be really huge for them. So, but yeah, I think honorable mention goes to the Royals for sure. All right, so let's go losers. Kerry, I think I know where you're going with this, but let's go ahead and hear who your losers.
The Rockies.
Yeah, can't pick the Rockies.
I mean, that was one of my 7 teams who blew it, but it's got to be the White Sox. I don't know if I'm stealing anyone's thunder here, but
you already introduced it for yourself. So
what were they even trying to accomplish? It made no sense. Like they traded away Dylan Cease, right? And it was like March 14th, right? That was the end of their season. All they should have been doing for the last 4 months is preparing for this trade deadline. And they didn't. I don't know if you're familiar with the Brian Regan stand-up routine where he's like, there's that kid who would wake up on the morning of the science fair. It's like, oh no, that's today. Put some dirt in a cup. It's like, it's dirt in a cup. Just move on. That's basically what Chris Getz did for the White Sox. I mean, when the Eric Fetty trade details were coming out, right? So it was Fetty and Tommy Pham to the Cardinals and Michael Kopech to the Dodgers, and they were supposed to get 4 prospects back. Noah Miller was one of them, and then like as it was coming out, when we thought Noah Miller was in the deal, we were like, seriously, that's all they got? And then everybody's like, wait. Just kidding. They don't have Noah Miller. It's like, it's even worse than we thought. Jesus. So I don't know what the heck they were doing.
It seems very weird. Like they had to, I mean, I will say devil's advocate, they got somebody to take Eloy's contract. That's, I mean, that's kind of yes, everything else doesn't make a lot of sense, but the fact that they were able to do that, I think, was a huge win for them. But I do understand everything. They should have got more for Kopech. They should have moved, Crochet. Roberts, there's no way. Like Robert was going to be too steep. I didn't see anybody ponying up for that. But it's not like the White Sox are doing anything. It goes back to the Rockies too. Like, what are these teams doing? Like, they're awful. Like, they're really, really, really bad, and I don't see any significant steps to improve that. It's very strange.
I agree completely. They just didn't. In hindsight, obviously hindsight being 2020, you see what everybody else got for their pitchers, and their like even Fetty. Fetty alone should have commanded almost that type of return based on the way the entire rest of the market went. And they got nothing. Like one thing, and I could be wrong, and there's one of them, but the Cardinals in that deal, like I don't even know what they gave up, or they gave up Edman. Sorry. Yeah. They gave up Tommy Edman and just got like you're just like, okay, like Tommy Edman, I don't even think has played a game this year. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, how did they sneak in? Like, when I saw 3-team deal, you get excited. You're like, what is going on? Like, that never happens. But, like, again, they just didn't do anything. It's like they didn't try. Robert should have been marketed for months. They had teams. They could have gotten 3 top 10 prospects from the Mariners. They probably could have gotten 3 top 10 prospects from the Orioles. I don't know what they're asking. That's what I mean. I need some sort of follow-up. I need somebody to put this guy on blast. Who gives a shit if you're dealing with Chris Getz ever again? He'll be taking another job eventually somewhere. He'll be fired from his job and not allowed to have another job anyway. So burn that bridge. Who cares? Just tell me how that conversation went. I need some inside information as a fan, because if I were a White Sox fan, I need to know what happened. Because if no teams were offering anything, that's a different story, right? If I'm only getting, one random prospect and a couple things, you're like, all right, I'm just going to hold on to them, and that's a win. But that definitely didn't happen because he'd be shouting that from the rooftops, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if Chris Getz was just reading some of the bullshit that people like me put out there. Where like, oh, Garrett Crochet, he's going to be worth 3 of the top 50 prospects in the world just based on whatever random calculations we have. But I feel like he was just over his head, and I was joking with my editor like during the deadline that he should have at least just gotten fleeced by either the Rays or the Braves. Like, that is your inauguration as a GM. Just obviously the Braves wanted Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet.
Absolutely.
Make it happen.
Make somebody else better, at least.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that. It just total ineptitude all across the board, right? From the owner. And you could almost start to see it now. Like, Luis Robert's stats over the last month have been atrocious. And people are like, I don't want him.
They don't want to play there.
I don't want to be there.
Yeah, they don't want to play there at all. And
I need Tommy Pham to come out and tell me what it's like, because that guy does not care about anything. I need him to tell us what it's like to play out there. Or we'll get something from Tim Anderson in 2 or 3 years when he stops trying to come back. But he can't burn that bridge right now.
No,
well, Lance Lynn and Keenan Middleton were saying some stuff last year when they got dealt. They're like, I'm glad to be out of there. That place is a hellhole.
It's just a life suck. And I know Crochet got some flack for coming out and saying what he's saying, but I wouldn't want to say pitch for a garbage ass team either in October, right? And to be fair, even if I got traded to a contender, you still got to worry about you.
Do we think that Crochet didn't get moved because of him speaking out? Do you think there was someone being vindictive there?
Chris Getz sure thinks that.
Yeah.
What he was saying, and I'm with Chris. I think what he didn't. There was no sound clip. He didn't explicitly say anything. I think it was a John Heyman report about it. Whatever. Somebody asked him. He was like, "I'm not going to deny it." But I think maybe what Josh Hader did the last few years with the Padres and the Brewers, where he was just like, "Listen, I'm never pitching more than 1 inning until you give me a better deal," and he was able to somehow work that into his arbitration dealing. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that moving forward, just because Crochet is trying to avoid becoming Matt Harvey. That's basically what we're talking about here. And I don't fault him at all for it. And if the White Sox ended up with their foot in their mouth as a result, that's on them.
It's an unfortunate thing, because that he's playing for millions of dollars, and meanwhile a bunch of people are going to stump for the White Sox and Jerry Reinsdorf and how he's not paying, not trying to pay him. It's a whole thing. We won't go down that road, but I pay the guy, and they're not going to. So just trade him and get what you're going to get and move on. Yeah. Hopefully they just pull a cease in the off season. And
there's no way they don't trade one or both of those guys in the offseason. And if they don't, then I just don't understand what's happening over there. All right, enough White Sox. They suck. They're taking up too much of our time. Chris, who is your loser?
I'm going with our girl Swilly and the Los Angeles Angels.
Oh no!
And she's on board too.
I know.
Besides, yes, they moved Estevez. They got some guys for him. Great, good deal, right? That works fine. But they have expiring contracts. Mm-hmm. Like, get rid of these people. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly who those. I don't think it's Rengifo. I don't think it's Taylor Ward. Like, I can understand to a point of like, hey, these guys are under contract. We're going to hang on to them. I guess that makes sense. But they are in no way, shape, or form competing. They have a ton of guys. Like Tyler Anderson, guys like 34 years old. The way that market panned out, they could have gotten another good haul for him. Mm-hmm. Just do it. Like what? And they might even pull that same shit they did last year and just start dropping people again. Like it wouldn't put it past them. Like Artie Moreno isn't a good owner. He slides under the radar because we have so many other bad ones. Right. Honestly. I just disliked their deadline overall. They have no sense of direction. Oh, and Anthony Rendon's back on the IL.
Oh God, that guy
is that so is that IL or is he just packing
I don't know. The ultimate just. I don't know. I can't talk bad about people, but I'm going to. Like he's just. That can't happen. Like
so wild.
And what stunk is like for so long, the Angels just paid people, and I'm all for it, and they just got every single one of them wrong.
Yeah,
like that. I couldn't tell you the last time they won.
Yeah, I mean, didn't the Angels get a decent amount of prospects though? I mean,
from who? For who? They got two.
I thought
what they got back for. Estevez was solid. I thought the Phillies gave up a lot, and even what they got for they got four. They get noteworthy prospects, but they got four prospects for Luis Garcia.
For Garcia, correct.
I feel like what they got for what they gave away was impressive, but I totally agree with Chris. Like, why did they not give up more? They were one of the 7 teams I had on my list of who blew it at the deadline, and that got like tweeted out by the BR walk-off thing. And usually I mute those conversations immediately because they get really toxic. But all of the Angels fans were like, "Yes, we fucked up. We did it again. That's us."
The fans aren't mad at you. They're the ones yelling about it.
Yeah,
right? They're on your side. So it just doesn't sit right. And I can only imagine what they're feeling like. 'Cause they're like, we're not here. And then Trout. It just came out today, but it's like you keep trying to hitch your wagon to him, and it's just not working.
He's getting hurt just trying to carry that entire team. So, okay. So
who you got?
My loser, and I'm going to start with this, and I'm too close to it, and so it may not count. But I genuinely think the Atlanta Braves were probably one of the bigger losers. The reason for that is they had two very big needs, and they didn't address them. Now, there's an argument that Soler fills one of those needs, which was we needed an outfielder with some pop. However, he hasn't played in the field all season. You know who else hasn't played in the field all season? Ozuna. So we have two guys that can't play outfield that are supposed to help our outfield get better. No way. And it's just, I know that we are we're a desert of prospects. We weren't getting anyone good. We had to give up something, and Double-A was not willing to do it. And that I think that's more than apparent because we couldn't get Fetty, who I felt like was a big target of ours. We couldn't get any of the like Lane Thomas, stuff like that. Like there were guys out there that we could have pursued, I feel like, and we just didn't. It just didn't happen. Again, I'm probably too close to that situation, so I would have to say I think my biggest loser is the Twins, and we kind of already touched on that. What a snooze! I mean, one of my close work friends is a big Twins fan, and I talked to him, and he's just like, "That's just that." I didn't expect anything else, It's so again, it's that fan base is just so used to nothing, and I mean. The Guardians didn't do much, but they didn't do anything to lessen that gap at all. And it's a head scratcher because that team is talented and they have the pieces to really make a deep run if they want to. They've proven it already. So why are you not trying to get better? Just, I don't know. The Twins, to me, I think because they are the ones that have the most to lose. If they don't get better, they're going to get caught. And they may not even make the playoffs at this point, which is wild considering where they are and how they started the season. So I think that's my biggest loser.
Because the Twins did nothing in the offseason, right? Yeah. Because of the regional sports network garbage.
Yeah.
But they got away with it. They ended up they're better than they were last year. They're like, well, we can just keep doing this. Yeah. And I agree. I think it's going to bite them. I have a post trade deadline postseason predictions. Say that 5 times fast. Article coming out. And I don't have the Twins getting in. I think they're going to miss the cut.
I've had my eyes set on the Royals as the So Mariners are hand in hand with the Astros, right? I don't expect them to win the division. So I'm constantly looking at this wild card picture.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I want the Royals to fail miserably.
Yep.
However,
the Royals.
The real path is the Twins. And yes, they have to pass out the Red Sox in the meantime, but for whatever reason, I don't want to worry. I'm not worried about them, even though they just beat us in the series. However, like you just said, the Twins are about to fall. Like they have to. They can't hold. I even saw some reports right towards the end of the deadline that the Twins might even start selling. Like Kepler might be available, Duran might be available. I have no idea if that was true or not. Yeah. But man, it was like, all right, let's go give them a call, see what's going on. But Andrew, to your point about the Guardians, like the Central just feels like a weird. Like both Centrals feel the same in like, you're like, oh, well, that's a Guardians type move. Or that's a Cardinals type move. Like what other move do the Cardinals make besides getting just compiling number 3 starters? The Twins
who are at least 33 years old.
Exactly. Old dudes.
Number 3 starters. Dudes, now, I will say, I used to say that about Sonny Gray. I used to say that about the Twins in Sonny Gray. However, Sonny Gray is very good still. So he's worked his way into like low level ace status is what I'll give him. But that's just what the Cardinals do. Like, that whole Central, like even the Guardians, like Lane Thomas, I like that move overall, but that's a ho-hum Guardians move. Yeah. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, again, they got better. And then they got Alex Cobb, and I didn't know that he was on a team. Yeah. If I'm being honest, it's like, and then he hasn't pitched this year. So what they're going to get from him, I have no idea, but I know they're banged up, and Tristan McKenzie has been not very good. So they need something.
Yeah, he's probably going to be their number 4 starter if they make the postseason. Like they had to do something, and I think he's made like 6 rehab starts in the last month. Like he might be pitching for them tomorrow. I'm not even sure, but he's coming back soon, and he's going to be a big piece of the rotation.
So
he's a Major League Baseball player.
The Guardians, what the 2 moves the Guardians made are the moves I wanted the Braves to make. Like they got that outfielder help, and they got the starting rotation help. You know what I mean? And it's not big moves; they're not great names, but they add to the team and make them significant. They make them just a little bit better, which the Guardians already are a good baseball team, so they don't need a lot. Yeah. Similar to like the Phillies, the Phillies are a great baseball team right now. They don't need to do much. They just had to do enough to secure their longevity. So I think the Guardians did a good job. Just again, not giant moves, but it is what it is.
All right, I got to ask, do you have the Mariners are you still writing this, or are the Mariners in
the playoffs? Yeah. I have both the Twins and the Royals missing, so only the Guardians coming out of the Central.
Down with the Royals.
Fuck the Royals. Let's go. Let's go.
They have I think the second toughest remaining schedule, like according to Tankathon or whatever, but they play, it's something from like August 23rd through September 11th. They play 20 consecutive games against like the Guardians, the Astros, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and somebody like they're just going to get their shit pushed in for 3 weeks
right
straight.
Now they just swept the White Sox, who, if you haven't noticed, have lost 17 straight games.
Jesus Christ.
They were beating the Royals twice. Again, I'm scoreboard watching.
Bless you.
Sorry about that. I'm scoreboard watching, so it's like, oh, they're winning. And then I look back and they're down like 6. I'm like, what the hell just that? Like, who came into this game?
The White Sox happened. Yeah.
But all right, I just needed to know where your sentiment is at, because mine is low. I have zero fun while watching Mariners baseball games. I don't even. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, we scored 3 runs. Like, okay, somebody needs to shut it down, and we don't. And then I'm back to square one. So I'm glad that you have faith in them because somebody has to.
I liked the Justin Turner pickup. I think that could be.
That was a free pickup.
That's either going to be a great move or whatever. He's our first baseman, right? Yeah, you got to.
He's better than Ty France.
Current Cincinnati Red Ty France.
I hope he turns it on. I have no problems with him. But yeah, the Turner thing was like overall I didn't want to toot my own horn. I do think the Mariners had like a solid B trade deadline.
Yeah, I think
it could have been an A. They have they're not the Orioles, but they have prospects to make something happen. So I'm saddened to have gone through that without it. I'm glad Yandy Diaz didn't end up anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because if he ended up like with the Astros as potentially reported, I may need new TVs. But, so I think they did well. That Yimi Garcia is a huge move. Like huge. And Santos just pulled something in his arm yesterday. I haven't read anything about it today, but if he's down, like he's automatically our setup man. Yeah. So they made moves. Again, they got better, and it wasn't a trade deadline thing, but Victor Robles is turning into
what the hell
superstar. And I'm going to ride that wave as long as
you should. As you should. Yeah.
Fully expecting him to regress to the mean, but for now he's hitting leadoff, baby. Let's ride. But yeah, so sorry, I had to sneak my Mariners recap in somewhere.
I appreciate it
because Andrew got to talk about his Braves. But you were saying something before I proudly cut you off.
I was just moving on to the snooze fest. So I mean, what teams do we feel like? And we've kind of touched on some, but what teams just didn't do anything, or they swapped a player for a player that's the same thing, or just didn't do anything to move the needle at all?
For me, I would say the Giants.
Okay.
I feel like when they traded away Solar like that, it made sense for getting below the luxury tax threshold, whatever. Like they were right up against that. And then they traded away Alex Cobb. That also got them below there. What was the other one they got rid of? Austin Slater, whatever. Austin Slater got traded twice in like 48 hours. Went to the Reds and then to the Orioles. But then the Mark Canha move just made no sense. Like they shedded salary and then took on like $4.5 million more with Canha. This is what the Giants do. This is the third straight year that we're like, are they going to pick a lane or not? Like they seem to always be right at 500 at the deadline and they don't do anything. And that was also the Red Sox MO for the last 2 years. They at least tried to do something this year. I think the Red Sox did pretty well at the deadline. And, if the Mariners are a B, I think the Red Sox probably had a B plus trade deadline in that battle. I think maybe they did better. But yeah, the Giants just perpetually refuse to do what they're supposed to do. And for a franchise that over the last 2 off seasons, right, thought they were going to get Aaron Judge, thought they were going to get Carlos Correa, thought they were going to get Shohei Ohtani, thought they were going to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
That's too many thoughts.
They just never get anything. They get Blake Snell and he sucks for 3 months, and then they don't trade him away when he does get good.
It seems weird. Yeah,
that's a good pick.
I mean, going to the Red Sox too, they picked up 4 bullpen arms, like Garcia, Sims, Priester. I feel like I'm missing one. Maybe it was just those 3.
It's James Paxton, not a bullpen arm.
Oh, okay, and Paxton too.
The big maple, baby.
Yeah, and then they got Danny Jansen.
Jansen.
Yeah, which
they got the Jansons together.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Red Sox did pretty good. I mean, bullpen moves don't move the needle, but it's something they desperately needed. So I'm with you there. But yeah, Giants snooze fest over there. What about you, Chris? Who's your snoozer?
Snooze fest? Just out of spite, I think, is the Houston Astros. They got Kikuchi, but they gave up a preposterous amount for him. I know Jesse and Riley were pretty damn excited to get for Buds and Blue Jays that they were excited about the return that they had gotten for him. And then that was it, really. And then they were rumored on Yandy up until the end, but same concept of the Braves, and they didn't have anybody. Like they don't have anybody else to move. I hope it comes back to bite them. It won't. And Andrew, I hope I don't steal your team, but the other one, and I could be wrong here, is the Mets. Like, I feel like they didn't do anything. Am I wrong? Did they get somebody? Did I miss something?
They got Jesse Winker. They got Paul Blackburn.
Oh, Blackburn.
But even that's kind of that was, with like the Diamondbacks when they made their desperation move to go get Josh Bell. That's what it felt like when they lost Senga for the rest of the year. Like, got to get something. Let's go get Paul Blackburn.
I like Blackburn, and they got Jesse Winker too, who, God love him, he's having a good year, but he stuck it to me in Seattle. But that was my other one. I thought I forgot that they got both of those guys. So better deadline than B- for them. I'll give them that.
B-.
That was better than I thought. Who you got?
I was going to say the Mets too feel like a snooze fest because we were just expecting something big from them with Pete Alonso, and so it's tough to, kind of be excited about it. So my snooze is, and they were busy-ish, but to me it's the A's, and I hate everything about that ownership group. And it's awful what they're doing to that team. But yes, they were able to get some prospects back, and okay, good. But they didn't do anything that really made it turn heads or made me care, right? And I didn't expect to care either. So I think it's just the A's did exactly what I expected the A's to do, which was nothing of note. And so, they're getting prospects back, but to what end are they getting these prospects? Like, they have a roster that's getting paid in like pennies. Good for you, so you can go play in Sacramento. In general, it's not great, but I don't think. It's good that they got, I guess, that the Urseg trade or whatever. I'm sure they got him. I don't know what team control was for him, but I think that was beneficial to them. So that was a plus move for them. But
he's a rookie. So that he has 5 years of team control left. Like when they moved Ursig, I assumed that was the signal that they're going to move Brent Rooker too.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
they could have gotten so much for Brent Rooker on this year's deadline. I think they screwed up.
So many teams were ready to get Rooker for sure, and they've proven that they don't like players talking bad about the team, so why would they not want to get rid of those guys? So but I think the A's is the team that I just fell asleep on and don't really care. And the Rockies were going to be my other one too, but we already talked about the Rockies, so
they're not worth our breath. They're another team that nobody submitted anything for, by the way. But Ursig, for being a rookie, he's 29, so he's relatively old for but again, to your point, if they care about money and stuff, like control was everything that they had. Not moving Rooker, it doesn't make sense. They could have moved Andujar, who is having a kind of a bounce back with them. Yeah. So again, to your point, like, what are you doing? And the only excuse that they're going to run with is this Sacramento, which is also already a shit show. Who would have guessed it? Here's hoping that everything that guy touches just goes to shit and all the players come out fine. Agreed. But that's all I've got. I almost wore my Cell shirt today.
Oh, you should have. I love that shirt's awesome.
It's a little simple shirt.
All right. So before we end, I did want to kind of ask something of you, Kerry. There was a lot of talk about all these big names like the Bellingers, the Alonsos, the Crochets, these guys that were like, oh, holy crap, they're going to make a big splash. Why do you think none of that happened this year? Like, what's your thumb on the pulse for that? Why did nothing big happen on this deadline?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm questioning that myself. Like, I never understood why Skubal was rumored to be traded. Yeah. I think when the Blake Snell rumors popped up, those never made sense because guys with Same with Bellinger. Like guys with player options, it's just so hard to move them because if you trade for them and they get hurt, like you're stuck with then $40 million worth of injury guy, or just whatever. But yeah, it was mostly the White Sox fault, right? They never broke the dam. I mean, we were waiting on Crochet and Robert, and it never happened. And I think that just made the early moves by the Marlins to move Chisholm, the Rays to move Arozarena, and it was kind of similar to the free agency window back in December, where we were just like waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally Ohtani signed, and then we were still just waiting and waiting and waiting. I don't know if it's still the RSN thing playing in, like some teams aren't sure where their money's coming from next year or what. There's always money in the banana stand. I don't know why they always cry
there's
foul
a lot of
that
money.
They can't
They're
do it.
billionaires.
But
they got
it's ridiculous. But yeah, it should have been more. I think we were. I remember like early May, I wrote something about like early bold predictions for the trade deadline or whatever, and I said that the first base market was going to be oversaturated because we thought Paul Goldschmidt, the Cardinals sucked early on. We thought Pete Alonso because the Mets sucked early on. We thought Christian Walker, like everything just kind of changed in June into July, and I don't know if they ever audibled enough outside of the Rays just going all in on a market where they realized that nobody was going to be trading things away.
It is interesting that you brought up the offseason because I can remember the whole time Chris and I were like, okay, when's that first domino going to fall and just lead to everything else? And the first one fell, and we just kind of, okay, that's it. And then waited a couple more days, and a week would go by, and another domino. But there was never that like, okay, everybody, let's do it. Oh crap, I liken it to a fantasy draft, right? Where like no one drafts a tight end, and then all of a sudden that first one goes, and then everybody drafts a tight end. So we just expected that to happen, and it just hasn't. And it's made for not a splashy couple off seasons or trade windows or whatever you want to call it, but it's interesting. I do wonder. Which ones we're going to talk about that have the impact? Because right now it's hard to even put a finger on it, but it's been interesting to say the least. So
I do have one, but this will be my final question. We kind of talked a little bit about it beforehand before we hit record, but do you think the MLB should move the deadline back at all? And if so, how far? Like what's reasonable?
Yeah, I think where it's at in the the calendar of the season, it's good, right? We're like 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot. But I mean, my big thing is that it should just be an off day for everybody.
Agreed.
Because we were also talking about this beforehand, like by 6 p.m. East Coast time, I didn't watch any baseball on whatever yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever that was. Like I was just done. Like it's too much. And I don't even know how those teams played. Like as I said, certainly the Marlins traded away 7 players from their 26-man roster. Like they didn't have anything close to a full team. I don't even remember who they were playing, but I'm sure they lost. But
yes, the Marlins. Yeah, they definitely lost. It's interesting. It's fun to think about, like moving it back, Chris. Like, what do you think the benefit of that is?
Just that more teams it'll be more clear because it's either that or get rid of that third wild card, which is never, ever, ever going to happen at this point, right? They opened up that Pandora's box. It's never going back. And quite frankly, the Mariners need that third wild card to get in, at least this year, in my opinion. But so it's a self-serving type of question.
That's fair.
But I think it's more reasonable that they would move it back because, as of now, there are still so many teams. Like you said, pick your, the Reds, okay, they're dead. What did I say? They're 6.5 out. They're really not completely out of it, right? The Astros destroyed a 10-game lead of the Mariners in a month. Like in 2 weeks, 6 games could be down to 3, and all of a sudden you're having a completely different conversation. And vice versa. The Pirates, who are 2.5 out of the wild card, they're 2 games over 500. They could lose 6 in a row right now and just be like, shit. Right. And I just think it opens since that third wild card is never ever going anywhere, I think the only answer to liven up the deadline might be an extra week, an extra 2 weeks, something along those lines, like mid-August, the 10th through 14th, I think would be a good spot. An extra day off, like you said, maybe a 2-day off, make it a kind of another thing. I don't know. They're MLB, figure it out. That's not my job.
Now, I know that there are other ways for people to get players now that we're past the trade deadline, right? Now, what is that? And I've never really understood how people can make those swaps later in the season after the deadline. Kerry, what's that specifically? Like, is it contract specific? Like, how is that possible?
So it used to be, I don't know. This must have changed when they did the strike 3 whatever years ago. But it used to be there was like a secondary like waiver trade deadline. Now it's just straight up waivers. Like I don't believe teams are allowed to trade anymore. But if like what the Angels did last year when they put Giolito and Hunter Renfroe and
that's
all
what
those
I was
guys
thinking about
on
was
waivers,
the Giolito thing.
Yeah. So that I think if they got rid of that, maybe that would kind of address what Chris was saying, where it forces teams to pick a lane at some point, kind of, because like with the Pirates, right? They still have Aroldis Chapman on a 1-year, $10.5 million deal or whatever. They can just, if they fall apart, they could just cut him and save themselves $2 million because somebody's going to pick him up if he's on waivers. If that option is no longer there, maybe that changes things for the deadline. I don't know.
Ooh.
But so yeah, that's what it is now. Is I think it's until August 31st.
31st. Okay. Yeah.
You can waive guys, and then it's like kind of like fantasy sports, like the inverse order of the standings has like the right of first refusal or whatever you call it. So that's why the Guardians were able to pick up everybody last year, because they were that last place team.
It
still
doesn't
with
reset.
some hope.
They get that same number for each guy. And to your point, I think it used to be if you cleared waivers, then you could be traded.
Yeah,
because there used to be, but it was the same deadline.
The pre waiver deadline was like July 31st, and then there was another waiver deadline on August 31st.
Clear waivers, then you're traded. Now it's just straight waivers. Which is weird. And then what are you going to do?
Hey, it's strange. Do we think that there's a team that could be waiver heavy like the Angels? What they did last year was so rare, but do we think that it could be the norm? And if so, who's probably a target for that?
I think the Cubs are the number one target since they're the furthest back, and they have a couple of guys
checks out
they can waive. It would be absolutely insane. But if they talk to Cody Bellinger and he says, look, I'm not fucking opting in on my player option, go ahead and cut me now, that would be wild.
That would be.
I think Hector Neris is probably the biggest one.
Neris. Hector Neris coming to a team near you, baby.
Beware.
Beware is fair. That's fair.
Bellinger's opting in no matter what. There's no way he's going to make more money. That's just my one-off opinion. No, I don't think based on
I think
what's
he
going
is too.
on.
Yeah.
But that's good info. That's extra info. And we came up with a solution there. We just said get rid of waivers. No more waivers. After the trade deadline.
Put us in charge of Major League Baseball.
We just fixed it.
That's what we're here for. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for spending some time with us and giving us your insights. We do the best we can to reach out and get other opinions and get it outside of our echo chamber. So we appreciate it.
No, this was fun. We'll have to put Doug in charge of connecting us again soon.
Absolutely. Part-time executive producer Doug Irwin. Yes.
We'll get it done. Kerry, thank you very much. That's Kerry Miller, Bleacher Report. Again, appreciate your welcome on anytime. Oh, and he's if you're in college basketball, my head spins, but super big into bracketology.
Really?
Reddick and Christian Leitner. Oh yeah, he's the last 4 in, last 4 out bubble team guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing that for months. It's incredible.
Yeah, the whole season I do bracketology. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with it, but if and when Joe Lunardi decides he's done with it, like I assume ESPN will be calling me.
Okay, awesome.
I'm ready.
Hey, let's do it.
Yeah.
But then we could be like, hey, why was that guy talking about baseball? It beats me. I don't know.
What else am I going to do from April through November? It's the perfect thing.
You're
right?
not
instead of sleeping like Rothstein, you're just doing baseball.
Yeah, no, I'm at the opening day weekend. I'm at the Final Four, and then the World Series ends, and then college football or college basketball season starts. It's perfect.
I hear you. That doesn't sound bad at all. Kerry, how can people follow you? Like, where do you want us to point them?
Oh, I'm on Twitter or X or whatever the hell Elon's calling it these days. At Karen's James. I don't really tweet much about baseball though, because like you said, I do mostly bracketology. But if you like college basketball, I do a lot of tweeting about that. But mostly you can read my stuff on Bleacher Report.
Awesome.
Perfect.
That sounds great, Kerry. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Take care, guys.
Thanks.